Hello, I'm Rebecca Flaherty, and today we're going to create this fun floral repeat pattern in Procreate. This is part of my series featuring the Pattern Maker canvas, plus the original trailing floral templates that are in my Etsy store. I designed this series to help you find even more ways to enjoy your templates and learn how to use the two together. Plus, there's a brand new set of free floral stamp brushes, that's a bit of a mouthful, palettes and a gold texture that you can download inside the Pattern Maker's Toolkit to go along with these tutorials, and that's a free add-on. These tutorials use the diamond method and are more of an intermediate level because of the template structure. If you need a little help getting started, I've got a full beginner series and 2 Skillshare classes that you might enjoy, and I'll link everything below. If you don't have the templates or canvas yet, you can still join in. There's a free trailing floral template inside the Pattern Maker's Toolkit that you can try, and you can make your own basic diamond sketch guide by using a 3600 pixel square canvas and sketching out a rough diamond on there. Let's get started. So we'll start by bringing in our floral canvas first. So we'll go to Import from the gallery screen and Trailing Floral Canvases, and it's template 2 that we want for this one. And these files all open on a blank screen because the sketch folder is hidden. It's to save on file space. For some reason, saving with a blank screen showing uses a little bit less space, which means I can put them all in one download rather than having to give a separate download link. So you just need to turn the sketch folder on, and we're going to tap on this layer here and tap copy. Then we can come back out into the gallery, tap on import again, and find the Pattern Maker canvas, and it's the Pattern Maker canvas updated that I'm going to use for this one. And then open up this one, we've got our textures at the top, open the sketch folder, tap on this bottom layer here, swipe down with 3 fingers and paste. And that's going to bring in the template guide onto this one, and you can then use it with these textures, and that will work for any of the textured overlays that I sell in my Etsy store. So we will start on the Draw Here First layer. Brush set wise, I'm going to be using the Florals 2.0 set, which you can get as a free add-on from the Pattern Maker's Toolkit over on my website, and we're going to be using this brush here, number 2, because we're on canvas 2. And palette, this is also free in that set. I'm gonna just grab, I use the pink color here, and it's the canvas 2 that we're using for this one. So in the sketch layer, we just need to put this stamp into each of these spaces here. These are for the flowers. You can use these stamps, you can make your own stamps, you can freehand flowers or buds, whatever you want to do. But we're going to begin in the Draw Here First layer. I'm just going to zoom in and stamp one of these in there. I've got my brush size at 10%. And 2 ways of doing this. Basically, I just want to fill every single one of these black circles in. You can either just stamp into each one like this and then use the select tool. Probably easier with snapping and magnetics off for this part, to just spin these round so that they line up like that. So you can stamp them all in and then move them around like that. Or if you wanted to put each one on a separate layer, right, add a layer above like that, and we'll stamp one on there. You could tap transform on the whole layer and move these around, and then duplicate, tap transform, and spin and move them around like that. It's up to you whichever one you use. It's fine to duplicate and move things around more than you would otherwise in Procreate, because the whole reason we use these stamp brushes, if you look at the line quality on this one, it's not too fuzzy. This one, it gets a little bit fuzzier, and then this one, which has been duplicated and moved around 3 times, that's quite fuzzy on that one. And that's why we sketch in the sketch folder and then only draw once in the right place in the pattern layers. But it is okay to duplicate and transform in the sketch layers, because we'll then be drawing over it properly later in the pattern layer. So you can use either of these methods. I think I'm probably going to stamp them all and then change them afterwards, because I think that's a little bit easier. So I'm just going to stamp one of these into all of these flowers and then use the select tool to move them around. For these ones here, although the stems for these are pink, the actual circle itself is black, so those will be included on this layer. So once you've got your little bud motif or whatever flower you're doing inside all of these black circles, just go and make sure they're all turned around the right way next. And as I mentioned in the introduction, I do have an initial set of videos that showed how to use these floral canvases. If you want a slower, deeper dive onto that, there's a link for that in the description. But if you have any questions while we're working through this video about why we're doing stuff as opposed to just how, then let me know in the comments and I will get back to you. I think that's all of those. Turn around the right way now. I'm sure I'll come across some as we work through that aren't turned around, like this one here. Maybe that really will be all of them now. We'll see. So now that all of those motifs are in place, I'm going to merge those down with the sketch diamond. So pinch those together and duplicate this layer, tap transform, put snapping and magnetics on now, and both turned all the way up, and we're going to put these in place around the edges of the canvas. And as we bring this down, you'll see these spots are now filled, and you'll see how this part makes all the bits around the edge. So we only have to draw these bits in the middle when we come to do the final pattern. I did that kind of quickly, but each time I was making sure that I had the orange line showing that I was snapping it into the corners. And if you're using the Pattern Maker canvas, you'll be able to use these as a visual to make sure you've lined it up as well. If you had a bit that was slightly not lined up properly, you'd be seeing things like that. So use the snapping, and also this will act as a visual guide to make sure that you have everything lined up properly. I can tap on this one now at the top and invert the colours on that, so now all the pink flowers are green and I can see which ones are which. Because this template has all the leaf positions marked out for me, I'm not going to do a separate trace over those, but if you were using this in a more freehand way and making your own pattern, you could also put the leaf elements in on this one if you want to change the position of any of those, and then put them around the outside to make sure that they work with the rest of the pattern. But as we're using the template for this one, we're ready to move on to the next part now. So I'm going to turn on my pattern folder, tap on this layer here, and I'm going to start by putting the leaves in. And because this is a trailing floral template, parts that cross this edge need to match up with themselves again down there. Like this part here is the same as up there. So there's always a few stems that you want to start off with. This one here is the one you want to start with because it matches up with itself down there. So on this layer here, and I'm going to use this green colour for the stems, and brush wise I'm going to use from the brush set that comes with the Pattern Maker canvas. I'm going to use the tracing crayon here. And I'm going to start here, go up and over, and then finish down here, sticking as close as I can to the dotted lines. The closer you stick to the dotted lines, the less cleanup work you'll have to do. I did not stick very closely to the dotted lines there, so this is going to be a good example of how to clean up afterwards. So I've stuck to the dotted lines there, but up here, just the curve didn't go quite that way. But this is where we match those parts up. I'm going to draw a mark going off the corner there and off the corner there. Then we duplicate this layer, tap transform, and I'm going to put snapping and magnetics back on, and then bring this halfway down and halfway across, same as in the sketch layer. And you'll see those orange lines there. And it's put this part here down there. And actually that's not too bad, but we can line this up a bit better. I'm better at drawing lines going down like that, so I'm going to turn this so it's at a good angle to work at. And then on this bottom layer, the one with the big line on it that we drew, I'm going to grab my eraser and just take it back up a little bit of the way. And then what I'm going to do is draw down here and merge it in nicely with this line. So just start back over on this one. And merge it in nicely there. And then when we draw this, put this back in up there, all of that is going to be nice, one nice continual line there. And that's what makes us a trailing floral. So once that one is in, we can then draw all of the other leaves and stems in. You can get rid of this top layer and carry on working on this layer and draw all of the other leaves and stems in now. Don't forget you can make these leaves any shape you like. As long as you stick to the position and don't draw them too much bigger so that they then start overlapping other shapes, they can be any shape you like. These teardrop leaf shapes have always been my favourite kind of shape to draw. There's something really soothing and calming about just tracing over these lovely teardrop curved shapes. You can see for this one I've gone a little bit past the line, but I know because I've put this one here that that's as far as I can go. So as long as I didn't draw it going over that, it's still going to match up pattern wise. Hopefully that's all of those traced over. Now we can fill these shapes in. Let's see how I've managed to do this without forgetting any this time. I think we got away with it. No, we didn't. Forgot these. There we go, that's all of those done. And I think what I'm going to do next is add a layer and draw the berry shapes in. I think we'll do the berries next. So on this layer, and I'll just grab this green colour for this, we will just draw these little ovals like that for these berries. And it's just these pink ones, the ones that are in green, we don't need to draw over. Make sure you don't forget to do these two here, even though they're not connected to these stems. These two need to be on this layer. Once you've got all of those traced over, we can use Colour Drop to fill those. And then I'm going to add a layer above and draw the little petals in over the top now. And use this same green colour to do that. You could do all of this on the same layer, all of this green work, but the reason I'm not doing it on the same layer is because I like to start in the middle of these berries and kind of have that curve be a bit more natural and start from the middle. But if you want to, when you're drawing your stems, if you wanted to start from here, you could do all of this on the same layer, but because I have this bit that goes further up, that's why I've sandwiched these in between those two layers. I just thought I'd mention that there if you are sort of looking to not use as many layers when you work. You could use that as a workaround. These two here I'm going to leave and do those in the extra group. Now what I want to do is play around with the colour a bit on this layer here with the berries. So I'm going to alpha lock this layer and I'm going to go to this summer icon set. This is also in the Pattern Maker's Toolkit, and I'm going to grab this colour changer brush. And what this does is it varies between these two colours here. So I'm going to set my primary colour as this green colour that we've just used, and then the secondary colour I'm going to make orange. And then if I alpha lock this layer here, you can see I've alpha locked that. You can swipe that way or tap on alpha lock. And I'm just going to scribble over this, and it's going to make all of the little berries fall in a shade that falls somewhere in between these two. So some will be more towards the green and some will be more towards the orange, and some will be sort of like a brown ochre colour in the middle. If you want to leave some just as the green colour, you can just not colour over all of those, or you can go back in afterwards and go over them with the green colour if you want to be a bit more intentional about the colour choices. Just going to scribble over all of these and we get this lovely random mix of colours in there then. Just make sure you scribble fully over each one and don't leave kind of bits like that that are half coloured in. Just draw over that one. And then once you have all of those coloured over, if you want to go back and make some of them either one colour or the other, you can. We hide the textures. If you have colours in here that you like, that you want to pull from, say you really like this colour, you could just then use a normal brush and then use that to manually recolor them, or you can just grab this one, and I think I'm going to add a few more of the green colors in there. So I might make this one just more of that pure green color. There we go. So now we've got a nice mix of these pretty colours in there. And the next thing we're going to do is draw these pink ones in our extra folder. So I'm going to turn off the textures, swipe down with 3 fingers, copy all, turn on the extra group, tap on this layer here, swipe down again with 3 fingers and paste. Then I'm going to duplicate this layer, tap transform and snap half of it over to this side. Then grab the one underneath and snap the other half over to that side. And when we zoom in, you should see that this all matches up there, so you know you're all in the right place. What I want to do is bring these top parts down to fill in these blue lines there so that we can draw these pink lines in and merge them in properly. So pinch those together, duplicate, tap transform and snap this halfway down and halfway across until you have those orange lines there. And then duplicate again, tap transform and then snap this one down and over to this side. And if I pinch those two together, you'll see even though that's now blue, it's all of that part there underneath is what we need to merge in with. So you can pinch all of that together, add a layer above, grab our dark green colour and just trace over these pink lines now. Make sure I've got the right brush, tracing crayon, and I'm just going to trace over these and merge it in with that there. And then add a layer above, and I'm gonna draw these in like that. I will come back and fix this part in a minute. Oops, wrong colour. This is all going to be on top of the buds that are underneath on a different layer. I'm going to go back down to this one, get my eraser, and I'm going to just erase this middle mark there. So then this extra part can be all one layer. Those two can now be pinched and merged together. So then this part here, I'm going to duplicate and bring that out and above the layers folder. I can turn the extra group off now. Put the textures back on. I can hide this one for now. And then one more thing which I want to do is add some little dots on this layer, and I'm going to use the mini dot brush from my set that comes with the Pattern Maker canvas, and we're going to tap on the little squiggle there, go to Color Dynamics, and for secondary color on the stamp color jitter, bring that up to the maximum, tap done, and then I'm going to use blue as the primary colour and this pink for the secondary colour. And then when we stamp with it, we're going to get a colour that is some random place between this one and that one. And then I'm going to stamp those around in the gaps here, and you get this lovely mix of colours. Then we're ready to start building the tile out. So we're going to hide the pattern marker, duplicate the pattern group, tap on it and flatten, and then we can drag this up out of the layers group and we can turn all of that off. First job is to put this back on the edges, so we'll hide this one for now, and on this one you need to put a mark going off the corners on alternate corners, duplicate, tap transform and snap half of this over there, and then the other one snap over to this side. Pinch those together. We can erase those marks there, and that is now back on the edges where it should be. See, it matches up with these now. You need to make sure that this is above. If you have it below, you can see it's not gonna be in the right place there, so that needs to be above for this pattern. Make sure your extra is above the pattern, and then you can pinch and merge those together. We've already got the 2 marks on the corners on this layer from where we drew them to line the pattern up right at the beginning, but if you don't have those, or if you've rubbed them out, put a mark on those 2 corners. Then we can duplicate this layer, tap transform, snap it down into this corner here. If you find that you're having trouble making this snap easily, make sure you've got all of these layers turned off, because if you have those layers turned on, it's going to try and snap to all sorts of other things that are on those layers. But if you turn your layers off, you'll find it'll snap straight into the corners. Much easier. So duplicate again, put that over there, and then one last one down here. I think this is one of my favourites in the florals. I really like the spacing and evenness on this pattern. So then these top 4 you can pinch together, and we need to erase these marks in the middle, and then if I hide this top one, put this one back on, need to erase these ones in the corner there as well, and then we can put them back on, pinch those together, and then that is the finished pattern tile. I'm going to change the background colour to this lovely dark blue colour, and that just looks so pretty now. If I wasn't filming, I would put the background colour on from the beginning, but when you film, if you have a darker colour, it can show more reflection, so I tend to, if it's a dark background, save that until the end. But if you're working through this, you could change the background colour at the beginning for sure. So I'm going to test this now and see how it's looking in repeat. I'm going to swipe down with 3 fingers, copy all, come up to the top here, swipe down again with 3 fingers and paste. And then I'm going to add a layer underneath it and fill it with a light colour. And then if there's any gaps around the edges, that light colour will show through. So on this layer here, tap transform and snap this up into the middle there until that says 1800 pixels. Then we can duplicate, snap this over here, zoom in, and then we can show and hide this and just make sure that there's no gaps or white lines down there. Those can be pinched together. This is very similar to the proofing test that you do on Spoonflower, where you just check the edges of the pattern, and if you've got no lines on here, you should be all right on Spoonflower as well. So this is how you check before you upload. So then we're going to duplicate this one, snap this halfway down like that, and then just zoom in, show and hide this seam so we can see where it is, make sure that there's no white line there and that all the motifs match up. Pinch those together, and then that's that lovely pretty pattern in repeat. You can grab your free toolkit with the brushes and palette using the link below, and remember, members also get 10% off everything in my Etsy store. The Pattern Maker's Toolkit is kind of like a free Patreon. You'll get a monthly email with creative prompts, seasonal colour palettes, early access to some of my YouTube videos, 10% off in my Etsy store, and a full library of free pattern making resources. It's just 1 email a month, no spam, and just goodies to help you stay creative. If you want to dive even deeper into surface pattern design, then my Skillshare classes are a great place to start, and you can get your first month free using this link. And don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube for weekly pattern making videos. Have fun, stay creative, and I will see you soon.